Welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Coleman. Joining me right now is Tony Gold. This is our match preview of Fulham's match against Arsenal. It's our three keys to victory for Fulham against Arsenal. It's been a while since we had a chance to talk about a Fulham match. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll get to that in the second half of the show. In the first half of the show, Tony and I are going to discuss a couple of interviews today, one being a presser and one being an interview with Shahid Khan. There's a lot to talk about in regards to that. So we got a ton to get to in regards to the presser and the interviews. And then, of course, the match itself. I do want to mention we're live on YouTube. We're live on the Cottage Talk Facebook page. Unfortunately, whatever reason, I cannot go live on my X account. So we're live here. And if you're watching live, thank you. And you want to watch it back, please feel free to on these two platforms. But if you want to listen to the podcast version, it is exclusive on the Cottage Talk Patreon page. Okay, enough of that. Tony, welcome back to the show. How are you doing? Tony, how you doing? Are you on mute?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. How are you doing, Ross?
I'm doing okay. I don't know. Was that a Goldman to start the show?
I've no idea. Bizarre. Anyway, well, I'm back. Back in the land of the living.
That's okay, my friend. That's okay. Things happen. How are you doing?
I'm very well. Yeah, looking forward to the weekend. Well, maybe not so much, but I'm pleased the international break's over, and yeah, we're back to real football.
We are. And like I said, we'll get to really talking about all that in the second half of the show. But I want to start off by talking about an interview done by TalkSport with Shahid Khan. Now, there's a lot in there, Tony, and this will be our section of Cottage Talk talking points. So I'm going to summarize what I watched, and then I'm going to share a comment that actually was made by Shahid Khan in regards to Marco. But before that, before we talk about that, let's talk about what Mr. Khan said about many things. He was asked about PSR. He was asked about all of that, talked about how competitive the Premier League is. He even brought up the NFL with salary cap, and that's one of the reasons why the NFL is so competitive. So it sounds like he understands the business model and what he's up against. And Tony, what I found interesting is that he really focused on the Riverside stand and the hope that that's going to give revenue to the club that they can put back into the club. I'm paraphrasing, but it sounds like that is part of the plan. It's something that I've said for a long time, that I believe the master plan behind the Riverside stand was to be a way to get money back into the club because of all these rules and regulations. That, to me, I think is a positive to come out of it. But one of the things I do want to mention going into this discussion is what he said about Marco Silva. So I'm going to just share a comment, and then I want to get your thoughts on what he said about Marco Silva, because it sounds like Marco Silva is in Shahid Khan's long-term plans. But the question is, obviously, is Marco feeling the same way? So this is what Khan said. On Silva, quote, this is from Jack Kelly's X account. He's been great. I really like him as a person, as a manager. Definitely, I think he's in our long-term plans, unquote. Okay, Tony, what do you make of that quote from Shahid Khan? And then I'll share my thoughts.
Yeah, well, obviously, it's a lot about what Shahid Khan thinks and where he feels he's at with it. But there was nothing about really about Marco Silva and his thoughts on it. I mean, I know he gave his initial sort of lip service, but ultimately, we've had this conversation many times, Russ. It's not difficult to sit down with a manager and work out a strategic plan moving forward in terms of what your manager expectations are, what players you're going to look to bring in to strengthen that, that idea, and then obviously implementing it and moving it forward. Now, Marco Silva's been here quite a while. We've had a really poor transfer window this season, regardless of what anybody thinks. It's not about how much you spend, it's about the quality of what you spend. And ultimately, we're going into, a game tomorrow against one of the best sides, if not the best side at the moment in the Premier League. And our squad is completely, dilapidated. So, look, it's not ideal. Has Marco Silva run his course, I think, is the question, Russ. I think that's where we need to get to, and that's what we need to sort of think about very carefully. Has he taken this football club as a manager with his abilities as far as he possibly can with the resources at his disposal? And I don't see Marco Silva staying beyond this season. I just don't see it.
Okay, and I would tend to agree with you, and I'm going to be sharing some quotes from Marco's presser that I feel are interesting. It's not like he says he's going someplace else. He doesn't say that, but I find them still interesting to discuss. But I think this is the question for us, and something I pondered for these last couple of weeks. We did a show right after the match, a couple of days later, after the loss to Bournemouth, and called the State of Fulham. And I made my thoughts pretty clear. You did, and we got a lot of positive feedback. And part of this, Tony, is to think, what do we want as Fulham supporters, right? Has Marco taken us as far as he can? I would say if you are looking, that's what you're looking for. And I think this is also part of us, right? I'm ambitious. I believe, because in this interview, Shahid Khan talks about that you have to be challenging for Europe. You have to. He said this in this interview. I'm paraphrasing exactly what he said, but he talked about the necessity to challenge for Europe, not getting to Europe, but challenge for it. But ultimately, the goal is to get into Europe, or you're, again, paraphrasing, standing still. I think the way Fulham are right now, they are built to stand still. They are risk averse. This was my conclusion I had from our last show. They do not take risks, Tony. The team has been built to basically keep us mid-table. That is what I truly believe. Premier League ready players that will keep us away from the relegation zone, but not good enough to get us into Europe. Where does that leave us? Mid-table. That's exactly where they are. And in case it, unfortunately, in this season, with what we're going to be talking about coming up next, with all the injuries, right? It could slip farther back. It could slip into a relegation battle. It has a sniff of that right now. It could turn itself around, absolutely, because Marco is a very good manager. But if you're asking me my overall thoughts, do I think he's taken us as far as he can? The answer is yes, because I think right now, even though this is an ambitious manager, I think that in a way, he does not like to take risks. He does not like to play players that are not established. And I think to take yourself to the next level, and I was thinking about this because we're talking about Mr. Khan. So think about how they're built right now, right? How do you think someone of his stature made his money? Do you think that he didn't take any risks? He had to have taken risks to make his fortune. You have to. Why are we in a situation where you have an ownership and a manager who does not take risks? Because they're playing it safe. I've now called Marco Silva Safe Silva, because that's who he is. He's safe. And I'm telling you right now that I believe that Shahid Khan and the way Fulham are built is to not really take a lot of risk. It's to play it safe. So, yes, Tony, I think Fulham have ran its course with Marco Silva with any kind of ambition towards Europe. I think that is gone. He has taken us as far as he, I think, can. I don't think he has the players to take us to that next level because they're not willing to take the risk to get those players. So that falls on ownership. but Marco also wants a certain type of player. It's basically heading like this. Both sides are heading into this to the safe zone. That's the reason why we are where we are, Tony.
Yeah, absolutely. All valid points. And look, Shahid Khan hasn't got where he's got to today without being an optimist. However, in relation to football, he's not a realist. And if he genuinely believes that this Fulham team is going to compete for Europe this season, then he needs to give his head a little bit of a wobble. And I'm sorry to break it to Fulham fans that also, want to be optimistic but not realistic. There is not a cat's helling chance that Fulham are going to compete for Europe this season unless they win the FA Cup or the Carabao Cup. It's as simple as that. We've got absolutely no chance of being anywhere close to it this season. With the current squad, with the way that we're playing, it's just not going to happen. So again, it's going to be a case of how high can Marco Silva drive this group of players? How long can he keep them motivated for? And how many of the big guns are Fulham going to beat this season? Because remember last year, Russ, the amount of points we picked up against those sides, it amounted to quite a lot. I don't see us beating any top 6 team this season at the moment, the way it stands. I don't see it.
Okay.
And that is, for me, where we're going to come unstuck this season. And that's why I believe we're not going to finish any higher than 14th, 15th, because we just don't have the depth.
Well,
Forget
it's going
about
to be
the
proven
quality.
Yeah.
We don't have the depth. That is the bottom line. And we don't have a forward line. We don't have players that can
Well,
score.
wait till we talk about that for the batch. Wait till we get there.
Yeah, it's Shahid Khan can sit there and obviously he needs to be optimistic because he's invested a lot of money. You talked about the stand, Russ. He's built this brand new stand to bring in revenue it's half empty every week because the prices are absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah.
And only the rich and the affluent can afford it. So how is he exactly going to make money on a half empty stand that he can't fill? There is so many things wrong behind the scenes. But like I said, in the last time we spoke, Russell, it needs shaking from the top right through down to middle.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
And until that happens, we will continue along this trajectory of, mentalness that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And that is the root of the problem.
Okay. I do want to mention this. And he actually says some very nice things about his son, about working with his son. He's asked about Tony, right? And I get this, I understand this. I'm a father, you're a father, and the ability to work with your son, that would be great, right? That would be wonderful. I get all that. And he talked in glowingly terms about the ability to work with his son. I think that's a great thing. Okay, I do. We're Fulham supporters, okay? This is not, and again, I respect all that, but I will tell you, Tony Khan has his fingers in many different businesses, and in all seriousness, does not have the background to be a director of football and should not be director of football. Yes, I'm saying it because I think you need a director of football that is only focus is on Fulham Football Club, and then you could build your vision around that. But he's got his situation with AEW, with the Jaguars. He's everywhere. So I understand why, as a father, I'd want my son involved. But I'm going to say it right now. I would want my son involved if he was qualified to be director of football. I would give him a different role. Being director of football is very important. And I just don't think that, I'm going to say it, he's qualified to be director of football.
He's not qualified, Russ. And that's the point. Listen, I'm delighted for Shahid Khan that he's able to buy a business or buy a football club and have his son involved. And I'm sure Tony Khan is a lovely fella.
Yeah, we're not saying that.
I'm sure he does, some wonderful things behind the scenes, off the scenes. And I'm sure in his own way, he absolutely loves it. But what are his credentials as a director of football, Russ? None. Zero.
He doesn't. He doesn't come from the background.
There are thousands of ex-professionals unemployed in the game that played the game at the highest level that could come in and offer a better insight into directing football or whatever it means nowadays. What does director of football even mean anymore? That could offer so much more. And I think that's the problem. And also, he's never present. And Fulham fans, they can see it. It's crystal clear to them. So you've got a director of football, like you said, who's got investments in so many other pies, and he seems to show a lot more interest in certain other things that he's involved in. But when Fulham get a victory, he comes out with a little tweet here and there, which is great, but it's not substantial. There's nothing substantial that comes from him, and ultimately, that is what you've seen this season in the transfer window, and that is what you're seeing at the moment, based on the fact that Fulham Football Club, like you said, Russ, right at the beginning, they have stagnated.
It totally has, Tony. And listen, like I said, when we've been talking about this, when you have a business like this, and he's built many businesses, I'm sure he's taken a lot of risk. And I just think that right now they are playing it safe all the way around. And to basically take yourself to the next level, I truly believe you do need to take some risk, and they're not doing that. And again, I'll say this because Tony's been on this show, Shahid's been on this show. They were great to come on this show. I respect Tony for what he has done, what he believes in, but I will say this, that I would like him to take a different role and let someone that has some more experience take Fulham to the next level. That's all. I'm not saying don't be involved. I'm saying have someone with more experience dealing in the game of football and building a football program. I know that's not the right word. It's more of an American term, but I think you understand where I'm going on this, where you can build something that has a long-term future. Instead, we have what we have, and I think that they're doing the best that they can with the model that they have, but I don't think the model that they have allows them to get to where Shahid Khan said in this interview, challenging for Europe. It's just not possible. And don't give me the size of Craven Cottage, because that's BS, okay? Bournemouth are fighting for Europe. Brighton Hove Albion, smaller, again, Brighton Hove Albion Stadium is actually I believe a little bit bigger than Craven Cottage, but Bournemouth, 11,000, Tony? Don't give me that crap that they don't have the ability. It's basically, if there's a will, there's a way, but you have to find the way. And their way is the safe way. And I'm telling you right now, playing it safe is not going to help Fulham get into Europe. It's going to help Fulham be where they are. They're stagnant, Tony. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and you know what? I'd have a lot more respect for Tony Khan if he actually sat down and did a really frank interview and told fans exactly what his role is and what he actually does at the football club. Not that he has to explain himself and I totally understand that, but actually just sit down and have a really frank, honest discussion with him about, right, Tony, what is your role at Fulham? What do you actually get yourself involved in? And if he did that and people have a better understanding of what it is he actually does as a director of football, then I think actually his relationship would be, much better all round. But the fact of the matter is, he's never around. He's never there. He's never visual. No. So all you've got is this vacant, nothingness. And no. Obviously, you try and make 2 and 2 and you get 6 because you always double, thinking yourself all the time.
Right. And listen, I'll say this. I truly believe, after talking to Tony years ago, and I truly believe he cares about Fulham Football Club. This isn't about caring. This isn't about wanting this to be the legacy of the Khan family. I believe all of that. I believe he cares a great deal. But I think also, as a leader, you have to delegate. And you have to know when to delegate. It's time that Tony delegated. That's my point. That's all. I'm just saying you can still have a role, but delegate and find some people that really can help Fulham take it to the next level. Because right now we're kind of in a holding pattern, and it doesn't need to be that way. Take some risk, make some changes. Listen, I'm scared of changes, but I know personally that sometimes you have to make changes to improve, and Fulham need to make changes structurally. That's just my opinion. You might disagree with me. I'm talking about if you're listening, or you, Tony. That's just how I feel, Tony. I think they have to make changes.
Yeah, and I can understand that. I mean, we have to be careful what we wish for and where it goes. But I think ultimately, no one can doubt or criticise the job that Marco Silva's done in the 5 years that he's been at this football club.
No.
Right? Ultimately, we've had some great times. Seen some really good football, and in the main, it's all been very positive and very good. But I think now, like you said, Russell, now Marco Silva really needs to earn his money and
Yeah,
really
we're
needs
going to
to
talk
show
about that.
what sort of manager he really is. Because I think now, now's the time to show whether or not he does have the ability to push on and take a team into Europe or at least challenge for Europe.
Right.
And at the moment, we haven't seen that. So, I think that is where the stumbling block is. And I think in many regards into why he hasn't signed a long-term contract, because we don't know the conversations he's having with the Khans behind the scenes. We don't
Yep.
know what's going on in those situations. And he's playing his cards very close to his chest. And I wouldn't blame him, to be perfectly honest, because his stock is relatively high still.
Yep.
If he has a really bad season this year and Fulham end up getting into or being in a relegation battle, that's going to hurt him. That is going to hurt him. So
Sure.
I think ultimately, we just have to sit tight, wait and see how it plays out. But at the moment, as it's looking and where we're going, it's not looking great, Russ. It's not looking great.
No, I hear Tony. Okay, let's transition. Let's talk about Marco's comments on his contract from the presser. I'm just going to share them here. That again, this is something from Jack Kelly. So I'm just going to share the comments, and it's interesting because I watched it. There are several comments. I think some of them actually are coming directly from Jack. I think Jack did a one-on-one, so I'm not sure if part of these comments are from a one-on-one with Jack, but they're definitely Marco's views on his contract. So I'm going to share them in just a second. So just bear with me while I do that, because I can never do anything quick when I'm sharing my screen. But here we go. Let's see. Here we go, Tony. So here are the comments. I'll read them out. This is from Jack Kelly's X account. Silva quote, "It's not something that is going to disrupt our season at all. If I have to, I'm going to speak with you every single week about it. Some news will come. The club will say to you, if not, we have to move on. The right time to speak, it will arrive." And then a separate quote, Silva on his future, quote, "I've been here for 5 years. Why not more?" Unquote. So you hear that last quote that I shared, it gives you the idea that he's kind of leaving the door open to maybe more. What do you make of these quotes? And what do you make of his presser? There are other quotes talking about his contract as well.
Well, he said a lot without saying a lot, basically. I mean, he, as I said, it's lip service. He doesn't want to talk about it. He feels uncomfortable, going into detail about, why it's taken so long, why it hasn't actually happened. But like you said, Russ, we've discussed it. And the reality is, I think it's pretty clear as to why he's holding back and why that situation hasn't been resolved yet. Because I think the Khans are waiting to see what happens, throughout this season and towards the end. And Marco Silva's waiting to see what happens with regards to, investment for next season, where the club finished this season. So I think there's just so many balls in the air at the moment. And until, they can get a proper handle on it, this is the rhetoric we're going to be spun throughout the season.
It is, Tony. And listen, I understand that both sides are kind of playing this game. They're going to play it out. This is a game. It's the contract game. They're going to play it out. They're going to see how everything shakes out on both sides. The Khans will see where Marco is, and then Marco's going to see where the club is. Can he take them to the next level kind of thing? And it'll all play out during the season. I agree with you all on that. That makes all sense. But I also know other stuff. And I've mentioned this on the show, and I have two sources that have told me that Marco was interviewing at Tottenham, so I can't get that out of my head. And I actually had one source tell me not just one time, several times at Tottenham, which tells me that he was actually pursuing another job, which is understandable, right? Champions League team, this all makes sense. It all makes sense. But he's playing. I want to give Marco credit here. I think he's playing this game here, because I'm calling it a game, very well. Because maybe he can turn this team into a team that can fight for Europe. I would love to see that. I don't see it yet. In fact, I don't believe it. Maybe he will. But he's got to get that done. And then if that happens, maybe there is a chance he stays. Maybe there's a chance that the Cons will buy into this and it continues. But that's a lot of ifs, Tony. And these comments from Marco just basically, I think they tell you a lot, that basically, like you said, everything's up in the air. That's the only thing I can say. It's all up in the air. I know many are saying he's definitely gone. I won't say that. I'm definitely not going to say he's staying. I just think that it's like a movie. We are in the middle of the movie, and we're going to have to wait until the movie ends to see what the result is. But I think a lot will be decided by how Fulham do this season and how Marco does. Like I said, we're going to talk about a match, and I think there's a lot on Marco in this upcoming match. A lot to show, because he's going to be shorthanded. This is when a manager really has a chance to show what he's about, because he's going to have to figure this one out against a really excellent side in Arsenal. I don't have a good feeling about it based on the players out, but he has a chance to make chicken salad out of chicken bleep, as we would say here. Because right now there are a lot of injuries. He's got to figure that out. So this is a chance for him to show how great a manager he is, because it's not going to be easy against Arsenal. He has to figure this one out tactically, what he's going to do. This is actually a wonderful opportunity to really see where Marco Silva is as a manager, Tony. Your thoughts?
Yep, 100%, Russ. And like you said, this is where, he has to show that he is more than just a steady to good manager. He wants to be a great manager. He needs to show that he's able to, take good players and make them better players and make us a better team.
Right.
And that's what good managers do, Russ. That's what they do. They transform, they improve. So, I'm yet to see it. I'm yet to see it. Yes, he's steadied the ship. Yes, he's managed to, get relatively okay players playing, well, but he hasn't managed to get a tune out of Smith Rowe yet. Right. He hasn't managed to get a tune out of Kevin yet, although it's very, very, very early days. Yeah. So I think that there's still so much that he needs to achieve and so much that he needs to do. And he needs to start showing it, Russ, because as I said, this season is starting to, etch away, and we are not moving forward in the way that we should be. And you know what it's like. We can fall into that trap very, very quickly. And then suddenly we're in a dogfight. And, games start to be won on emotion and things like that. Tactics and formations and all that sort of stuff starts going out the window, because players need to roll up their sleeves and, sometimes get into a dogfight. And I don't think we've got players for a dogfight. That's the bottom line.
You know what this reminds me of? And I'm sorry I'm going to bring this up. I agree with you on this, okay? This is what has me a little bit concerned, because you just said it. We don't have players for that. The last time they didn't have players for that, it was the year that they first got relegated. Those players weren't built for that. When you have players like Berbatov, it wasn't built for that. That's part of the reason why they couldn't deal with a relegation battle. This team right now, the players that they have, I don't think they're built for that. So that's why I think partially I understand why that they brought in these types of players for solidity, right? To be comfortably mid-table. I call mid-table mediocrity. But as like I said, I heard this interview from Mr. Khan. He gets it, though. If they stand still, I'm paraphrasing, if they're not going to challenge for Europe, then it's not going to go their way. And that's why you have to continue to build. And right now, they've got a major challenge on their hands. And it starts with this summer, as you said. It's a fair criticism. We could go over and over what they did not do this summer, and it is fair to say. It is fair to say. They right now are dealing with an extremely small side that has injuries, and that makes it even worse. So let's head right there now, my friend. Before we break down this match, let's talk about it. Marco confirms many injuries heading into the match, Tony, and I'm going to share this with you because this really it's concerning. Okay, it's very concerning how many injuries there are. You and I have talked about it, but the only thing I'm going to say about all the injuries, right? Areola has dealt with injuries, a lot of injuries last season, and he got past it. That's why I think this is the time for Marco to show his magic, man, because he's going to have to, because we are definitely short-handed. So this is Silva on Team News. I'm sharing it right now. I'm read it. Quote, the number of injuries are not good for us at the moment. We are in a worse position than before. Jedi out, Lukic out, Mooney's out, probably Jaquazi out. Kenny and Raul are doubts. We're not sure about them for tomorrow. Lukic, 1 to 2 weeks. Let's see. Unquote. Tony, that's a ton of players out. But I will just preface this that there's some very important players that are out at this moment. But I will then go to the flip side. He has to figure this out, Tony, because that's a lot. There, and I'll go through it with you. What would you do with the players that are available? We'll get to that coming up. But what do you make of all these injuries? And then we'll talk about what Marco needs to do.
Yeah, it's a huge problem, Russ. You're not talking about just willy-nilly players. You're talking about some very key individuals that have a vital role within Silva's system and the way that we play. The first thing that is a huge worry is that we've got no forward line at all. So where are goals coming from? Our midfield don't score goals. Sander Berg doesn't contribute to goals. Josh King has yet to score. Yep. Right, Smith Rowe's on the bench. The two wide players, Harry Wilson, Iwobi, they pop up with a goal 1 in every 3 or whatever it is. So, goals is a huge problem. We don't have a forward. So that's the first issue that he's got. And you can't be playing Arsenal, I'm sorry, or any team, but you don't want to be playing Arsenal with no forward line. So he's going to have to improvise again. He's not going to throw the 19-year-old surely into that game. Well, it would be such a Marco Silva thing to do. Suddenly, oh yeah, okay, I'll hold my hands up. Maybe I should play forward, and lo and behold, he throws him in. It's like lamb to the slaughters. But no, it's a major problem, Russ. Major problem. And the squad of our, the depth of our squad, unfortunately, is now going to be tested to the hilt.
Big time.
And and unfortunately, knowing and having seen this record and this picture before, it doesn't bode well. It just doesn't bode well. And I want to be positive about it.
I know.
You tell me where the positives are.
I don't know if I can. And we'll break this down, and that will give you a clue to what my prediction is going to be for this match. And it's not going to be positive. I'll just say that, because I think that there are a lot of injuries, and I think we have a manager that is stubborn and does it his way. And I have a feeling that he's going to be stubborn tomorrow. And I'll share my thoughts when we break down the match. But this is what I've been talking about at the beginning of the show, Tony. This is my statement about the injuries and everything going on. You're paying this gentleman, Marco Silva, and his staff some good money here. Okay, you really are. Did they get screwed over the summer with not enough players coming in, the right players coming in? I will say yes. I will say everyone that's saying yes, I'm going to agree with you. Did not bring in enough players, did not probably get the players that he wanted in. And, oh, by the way, extremely late, very late. So it's screwed up so many things. I will say this, though. This is a situation that some managers thrive on. Injuries across the board. Now I get to figure things out. This is where he makes his money. I truly believe this, Tony. This is a very good to great Arsenal side. He has to figure this one out. It might not be pretty, and I don't care. But this is where he makes his money, Tony.
Yeah, listen, he needs a miracle, Russ, is the truth. I mean, he needs a miracle. For us to get a result tomorrow against Arsenal, he needs a miracle. You know, what you got to think about Arsenal is they've improved their depth, right? They are very strong in terms of squad. They're strong defensively. They've got a very, very progressive midfield,
Yep.
and they are very dangerous in wide areas. And they've probably got one of the best defensive partnerships in the world.
They do.
So, and we don't
not
have
going to score goals,
and we don't have a strike force,
and we don't have a strike force. So,
but having said that, wouldn't it be the most Fulhamish thing to do to go and get a flipping point tomorrow? Or, because that's something that and actually we've done quite well against Arsenal in recent times as well.
We have.
So
we have.
You can't ignore that. But the reality is, if you're not going with your heart and you're thinking with your head and you're being realistic, I mean, it will be one of the biggest upsets in Premier League history if Fulham get a result against Arsenal tomorrow, given the circumstances and the situation that Fulham face.
Right. With all the injuries, with everything going against them, as you said, it would be so Fulhamish that they figured this out.
Yeah.
The one thing that I will say that I think Fulham have an advantage, and I will mention this when we go to the keys to victory. I'm going to say this. Not that I'm against Arteta, right? Arteta is as stubborn as Silva. He does not change anything at all. So Marco will know how to play against Arsenal, play against Arteta's team. If he can figure a way to lessen the damage, take advantage of an opportunity when it comes, and beat this team and get ahead of this team. The only way they get anything from this, they have to play from ahead. They have to. They have to play from ahead. They cannot play from behind against this team, or you can just say sayonara. They can't. If once Arsenal gets up in all essence, it's going to be very difficult for Fulham to get anything from this. But if they play from ahead, if they find a way to get a goal, they have a chance, because I've seen this movie before 2 seasons ago. They got ahead of Arsenal, and I felt like I was watching the same movie over and over again. They could not break Fulham down. They need something like that to happen. All the breaks have to go their way. A penalty. They're going to need a VAR decision to go in their way. It's literally going to be something like that. They're going to have all of the calls go their way. That's the only way they get something from this match, because they are overmatched. This team is much better than, much more talented, much more depth, everything. Great defense. They have everything that you'd want. Yes, Odegaard's out, but it doesn't matter. Eze's there. Scares the life out of me. Okay, they have game changers that Fulham simply do not have. They might have one someday in Josh King, but beyond Josh King right now, who's your game changer? They don't really have one. And that to me is going to be a big difference, especially against a defense like this that is, like you said, one of the best in the world. So are you telling me you're going to score a goal against this team? You're going to need some luck. And let's hope the luck is on Fulham's side. Tony, all right, let's get to this. Let's go with the idea. 3 keys to victory. Okay, we're going to do this. We have to analyze and really discuss how to pull this sucker off, because it certainly does not seem likely, but you never know. Let's go with number 3. I'll get us started by saying they're going to need luck. I've already said this. They're going to need a decision going their way. That's my number 3 key to victory, and that's something you can't really depend on, is they're going to need a call to go their way.
So my third key to victory is critical.
Okay.
Silva's formation and shape has to be absolutely spot on, and the discipline from the players within that shape, defensively, off the ball, has to be executed to perfection.
Okay, very good. All right. I've got some comments. I'll share them after we do our 3 keys to victory. Number 2. Tony, I'll go back to you. Give me your number 2.
So this is the biggest worry for me on the day, Russ, is that you're playing against one of the best set-piece teams in the country, against one of the worst defensive set teams in the country. And that, for me, is going to be critical tomorrow. It's how Fulham defend corners and free kicks, because we are very susceptible, especially with the, zonal marking.
Yeah.
Arsenal are very strong in those areas, and we are going to have to, get all of those situations absolutely spot on.
Okay. I'm going to go in a similar direction, but I'm going to put the focus on Bernd Leno. Bernd Leno needs a Mark Schwarzer back in the day kind of performance, meaning he, as we would say over here with hockey, when you say you need the goaltender, we'll call him the goalkeeper, sit on his head, basically just go nuts and take over a match defensively. You're going to need some incredible saves from Bernd Leno to keep you in the match, because they are going to, he's going to be under threat. And I think a lot will depend on how well Bernd Leno can play. He can be at that level. So I'm going to put Bernd Leno as that. And my number one, Tony, is not going to be a surprise. I want your thoughts on your number one. It's going to be Marco. It's going to be the decisions that he makes. He has to, and I mean has to, outcoach Mikel Arteta and have a game plan that is going to keep Fulham in the game and give them a chance. I think it comes down to, I think a lot of this is on Marco, because he does not have the players right now to go toe-to-toe with this team. He doesn't. So I think a lot of this is going to fall on Marco.
You're probably right, but unfortunately, as we both know, Marco Silva isn't brave enough to go and want to win the game. So what you're going to see is Fulham pretty much keeping most of the team behind the ball for most of the game. And my number one key to victory is making sure that we keep Saka quiet. We cannot allow him to influence the game. We can't allow him to get on the ball and be positive in our final third. And if we can keep him quiet and stop him creating and getting him behind us, then we give ourselves a slight chance. I wouldn't say a great chance, but a slight chance, because they've got other players that can hurt us as well. Yep. But for me, it's about making sure that we manage Saka and stop him being the influence on the game.
Okay. I'm going to share this comment from Ben Lawrence. I actually spoke to Ben on the phone yesterday. We had a nice conversation about this upcoming match, and he actually shared this to me. So I want to get your thoughts, Tony, on what Ben shared. He says, play Bassi at left back to counter Saka, bring in Cuenca alongside Innocent, Berga and Iwobi in the middle, have King in front, have Wilson and Kevin on wings. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, look, it's a good shout. Calvin Bassey, is he disciplined enough to play in that area? You know what, he likes to bomb forward and get forward, but that would be a concern. Look, I think Cuenca has a lot of qualities. Again, another player that we don't get to see enough of, but I think he's still got a lot to offer. It would be a gamble and a risk, and as we know, Marco Silva, doesn't tend to take those sort of gambles and risks.
No, he doesn't.
The forward, I think it's a great opportunity to get Kevin involved, and let's see what this kid can actually do. Right. But you're asking him to go up against one of the best defenses in the league, so it's a big ask. Asking him to come in for his first game to start.
Yep.
And also a lot of responsibility on Josh King's shoulders. We've got to remember he's only 18.
Right.
It's his first proper full season. You can't be asking him to, to dominate Arsenal, sort of games that, players that he's going to be up against. And Harry and Wilson and Iwobi, yeah, I get it. But, so far, other than the Brentford game, both of them have been quite disappointing, Russ.
Sure.
They haven't really, especially in the Villa and Bournemouth games. They were woeful.
Right.
And, I don't think Silva can really deviate too much, because he hasn't got many other options, is the honest truth. He's got what he's got based on the injuries. So, the bigger question for me is, who's he going to play up front tomorrow?
Well, we're going to talk about that
question.
Well, we're going to talk about that, but going to your point, I'm going to disagree with you slightly on Josh King. Okay. I understand what you're saying, because it makes sense. He's an 18-year-old kid. This is not a normal 18-year-old kid. He plays with all kinds of confidence. The kid plays with no fear. He's played against Chelsea and dominated. I think he will not be intimidated whatsoever by Arsenal. I disagree, because I think you could do that with him. I definitely feel that way, Tony, because I think he's ready to go. unfortunately, the breaks have gone against him. He should already have 1 or 2 goals by now. If it's a normal situation with a normal player and you're telling me an 18-year-old, no, I would totally agree with you. I think Josh King is just different.
Yeah,
I
no,
think
listen,
he's different.
he won't be intimidated at all.
Not at all.
You're absolutely right. My point was, we're asking an 18-year-old kid to be the standout player for Fulham Football Club and be the one that's going to dictate everything and get us
Yeah.
on the front foot. It's a lot of responsibility on a young man's shoulders, Russ. And you don't want to be putting him under that kind of pressure because, listen, I believe he can handle it. No,
I think he can handle it, Tony. That's the thing.
Yeah,
I think he can handle it.
I do, but it's still a lot to ask for a young lad to do, and I just want to see him play like he has been playing, free, brave, fearless. That's what I want to see from him tomorrow.
Okay, I want to share this comment because Dean and Ben were going back and forth because this will go into when we talk about our starting 11 and what we think Marco is going to do. And I've already heard talk about this on Fulhamish, just bringing up the conversation. Ben and I talked about it. He's going to make the argument that he should not do this. I'll share his comment right afterwards. But Dean says Silva might be forced to change formation and switch to 3 at the back and try to overload the midfield. Now, then Ben comes with a comment. This is what he said to me. Problem is, mate, if play back 3, that will allow Eze and Saka more freedom against wing-backs and Sessegnon and Castagna. Where do you fall on this?
It will kill us.
Okay.
It will kill us because the 3 centre halves are not good enough defensively. And that, we will get exposed in those fullback areas, playing Sess and Cass if they both play. Okay. They would literally have to play. It would end up being a back 5 eventually because Arsenal, they will have a cheat up. They will keep those players high because, they're their 2 most influential players effectively. So I can see where he's coming from, but we don't have dominant enough centre halves to play free at the back against Arsenal. I can't. I think it would be a recipe for disaster. But that's just my opinion.
Okay. Then Dean just chimed in again. So 3 at the back could allow us to start both King and ESR to load the midfield.
We can't afford any luxury players tomorrow, Russ. We cannot afford players to run around and just do it when they fancy. You've got to have 11 players out there that are willing to roll up their sleeves and literally put in a dogged, workman-like, strong.
Yeah, I see your point. That's this type of match against this type of club. I think I understand where you're going because I was thinking
Harrison Reed for me has got to play tomorrow.
Well, we're going to get there because I was thinking about Harrison Reed. Okay, let's get to talking about the starting 11, and then we'll talk about what we think Marco's going to do. Let's go right there right now, okay? We give in our keys to victory. So I'm sorry. Did you give your number 1 or am I blank?
Yeah, I did. No, I gave it.
Okay. I'm sorry. It's a Goldman for you. All right. Let's go to a starting 11. What you and I would do. Okay. Not what Marco will do. What we would do. So give me your starting 11, then I'll share mine.
I think he's got to keep it as simple and as tight as possible. So for me, it's a difficult one. I wouldn't change anything, defensively, necessarily. The problem is I'm not sure Castagna is the right answer there, Russ, and that's what worries me the most in the fullback areas.
Okay.
And can you play Cuenca at right back? I'm not sure.
I don't know if you can.
I'm not sure.
You can play him at left back, but I don't know if you can play him at right back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So I think he's going to go with Castagna, Bassi, Anderson, and Sess. I don't see that. I just don't see that changing. But the midfield for me, you've got to have a a little Rottweiler in there. And for me, Harrison Reed's got to come in for Sasha Lukic and play alongside Sanderberg with Josh King. I would start Kevin tomorrow. Just start to get him in. Give him a run of games. I play Emil Smith-Rowe, and I'd play Iwobi.
Okay,
that would be my starting 11.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, so I'm gonna have to think this through. So the back 4, I'm going to agree with you. This is where it gets interesting. I do like the Harrison Reed thing. I actually do like that. I'm gonna think outside the box. Okay, I'm not gonna go with Harrison Reed. I'm gonna go with Berga, Awobi, and Josh King. Kevin on one side. On the other side, oh God, I can't believe I'm gonna do this, and I really shouldn't be doing this, Tony. The other side, I'm gonna go Wilson, and up front, oh God, why am I doing this? I'm gonna go Damatrari. And I know that I know that that's terrible, but I actually put myself in a corner by going with a Wobie in the middle because that limits me. Because now I have to have Wilson on the right and Kevin on the left, and then that leaves me with Adama Traore, which is not a good option at all. What do you think Marco's going to do?
It's a very good question, and the honest truth is, I don't know, because the issue for Marco Silva is he must be thinking the only way we're going to be able to get at Arsenal and cause them problems is set pieces, Russ, right?
Yeah.
Dead ball situations, corners, free kicks around the box. He's not going to. I can't see him playing Traore up front tomorrow. I just can't see it. The guy's a headless chicken.
Yeah.
You know,
I can't either. I mean, I'm just trying to make it work.
Yeah, and this is the problem, and this is the problem that we've got, Russ. So it's either going to be one of Harry Wilson, Iwobi, Kevin.
Okay. So I've heard this argument. Could you play Kevin up front?
Yeah, I mean, why not? I mean, he's not going to do any worse than any of the other options. It's not a natural position for him. He's not going to be that player, though, that's going to hold the ball up. He's not going to be that player that, goes up one-on-one against probably the two best centre halves in the league and starts, rolling and spinning. Okay. We'd have to play very direct. We'd have to play in behind, and we'd have to play very high. And then the balance on that is you don't want to get overrun in midfield. And when we talk about luxury players, are players like, Josh King, Sanderberg, and one another, Iwobi, is that midfield going to be good enough to take care of Arsenal's, marauding midfielders? I don't think it is.
Yeah,
I think it's going to get exposed. I think whichever way you look at it, however we set up, it's going to be tough.
I don't think that's the problem that I have here. And like we're talking about, that's why I said this is where Marco makes his money, because there's no easy solution here. There's no easy way to play this for him. Well, like I said, he could, as Ben said, you play it safe. With Marco, we'll go with a back five like Bournemouth, I reckon, play safe. But is that really playing it safe? Is that
it's damage limitation, Russ? That's what it is. It's damage limitation. He will set up for damage limitation. Realistically, Silva knows he cannot win this game. Arsenal would have to have an absolute shocker tomorrow. Okay. An absolute shocker for Fulham to get anything out of this game.
Okay. So I'm going to give you a for instance, and I want to ask you, how much would this change things? Would it change anything with you if Jimenez is available?
Well, it gives you an out. That's the only thing it changes.
Because Raul is a doubt. He's not ruled out.
No.
There's a possibility.
There's a possibility.
I just don't know. I don't know if he's playing coy here, playing games with Arteta, because I don't know.
I think, look, ultimately, he's got an option. He does have an option as a forward, but for whatever reason, he won't play him. And he's definitely not going to throw.
Well, we haven't really even talked about him, but
no, but he's not going to throw him into a game against Arsenal tomorrow, is he? When he refused to play him against Bournemouth, refused to bring him on against.
Hey, Chris, you're late. You're late, Chris. You're late.
Hi, Chris. So yeah, look, I think ultimately it's a massive, massive problem, and it doesn't matter, as I say, who he plays up there, because ultimately you're asking whoever it is, Traore, Wilson, Iwobi, Kevin, they are going to try and do a job. That's all they're going to do, Russ. They are not centre forwards.
Yeah.
So you are already up against it before you start.
Okay. So John brings this up, and I was thinking this as well. I've heard this brought up. Why not put Wilson up front? Wilson has been a striker, but again, he can't hold up the ball, as we said.
Look, again, he could do a job. I'm sure he could do a job up there. But how are you asking Harry Wilson to play as a centre forward in that formation? You know, he just end up doing doggies, running around like a headless chicken. He's not going to be able to hold the ball up. He doesn't. That's not how he plays.
No.
He doesn't have that in his arsenal. No. So you're asking him to do something
against
that's
Arsenal.
Yeah, you're asking him to do something completely alien. That, actually could be detrimental to us in the long run, unless, as I said, Silva decides, right, the only way we're going to play is we're going to keep it tight, play with a low block, and hit Arsenal on a counter attack and try and get in behind, them. Arteta will play a relatively high line.
Yeah,
so there might be options to get in behind them, but we have to be very direct. And that's where I can see Kevin maybe having an influence and being involved.
Well, see, I can see that. That's why I was thinking about this. I think these are the matches you brought Kevin in for, was really against Arsenal, Liverpool, the quote-unquote Big Six, because of his pace, his ability. I think when you're a team when Fulham have the ball and you're dominant on the ball, that's where I think it might stifle a player like Kevin. But when you can play on the break with Kevin, maybe this is when he shines. Maybe this is when you could see his ability. So,
but what he can do, Russ, is he can stretch players. He can stretch, to hurt Arsenal and to get Arsenal, you have to get at their fullbacks. I think that's where they can be dominated and hurt. And if you've got a player that, is happy to run, and he is happy to run, then he's the one player that can stretch them. And ultimately, then it comes down to his final ball. Because at the moment, his final ball hasn't been great.
No, I hear you, man. Okay. It's time to end the show with our prediction. If you're watching live, we have a few people watching live with us. Feel free to share your prediction. I'll go first, Tony, because I've already told you that this is going to be a little bit on Goldman-like. Okay, anyone that has watched Cottage Talk over the years knows I am the eternal optimist. I'm always thinking optimistic. I don't think I've ever put a score in the history of Cottage Talk, a prediction like this. And it's not 6-7-1 Arsenal, but it's 4-1 Arsenal. I don't think I've ever gone that far. I'm going 4-1 Arsenal. Fulham just do not have the players. I don't have faith that Silva's going to be able to figure a way to lessen the damage here. So I'm going 4-1 Arsenal.
Yeah, it's hard to it's really hard to find how, but look, football, as we know, is a funny old game, as Jimmy Greaves used to say. And on the day, anything can happen, Russ. But if we're being, realistic and taking the emotion and the heart out of it, Arsenal at the moment are a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, they really are.
They've got the best defence in the league at the moment. We're coming back off an international break, which is never bodes well for Fulham, ever. We've got no strike force. Unfortunately for me, Russ, and I'm going to be conservative here, I think Arsenal are going to win 3-0 comfortably.
Okay, so we're kind of going in the same direction with 3-goal difference. So, all right, Chris, I'm telling you right now, if this turns out to be true, I am getting you on Cottage Talk to do a show with me and Tony, okay? I'm telling you right now, you're going to do a show with us. Of course, now I can't find his prediction. Chris, if you're right, if it's Fulham 2, Arsenal 1, you're doing a show with me and Tony. The three of us are going to do a show. I want a response from you that you'll do that if this score line comes in, because I definitely want to get you on. That would be too funny. I don't see it. I totally don't see it, my friend, but I hope you're right. We've got Dean Monroe saying fighting draw 2-2.
Maybe if we can borrow Isak and Mo Salah.
Yeah, can we have that for the game? Are you okay with that, Chris? So Paul says 3-0 to Arsenal, but if we can do something Fulhamish 2-1 to Fulham, just, keep seeing that.
And he's right. It could be such a Fulhamish thing tomorrow to get a result. Honestly,
yeah. Okay. He's already agreed. Thank you, Chris. So he's agreed to come on. So we need this to happen because I want to get you on with me and Tony. So we have to. We need this victory. We need 2-1. Ben's going. I believe Ben's going 2-1 to Arsenal. I think I could deal with that. But that's going to do it. That's great. I do want to mention one comment I didn't get a chance to get to earlier in the show, Tony, and it's actually from our friend Black White in Front. I don't know if he's still with us, but I want to just share a comment to end the show because I can talk about this. I meant to do it earlier, just talk about NFL contracts. So I'm going to end by talking about it. He asked, how do NFL contracts work? Do they let them run down before they offer improved terms? I don't know if this approach translates to football. So my answer to this is what they do is basically the majority of NFL contracts, my friend, are not guaranteed. So they can cut a player like that. So if you want to talk about contracts not being worth the money, the worth, the ink that they're drawn on, you are 100% right. What is worth the money is the guaranteed money. They do offer guaranteed money, but NFL, you can cut someone tomorrow. That's how crazy these contracts are. So I don't think they really run down contracts. They basically will just cut a player. So it really doesn't translate, but the mentality kind of does. The mentality is that they're in the driver's seat. The ownership is in the driver's seat. And I see that's the way that they've established their contracts. I think that they do have this NFL mentality when it comes to Fulham, and I don't think it does translate. So I think that's where they might struggle a little bit. Okay, Chris, I am going to share this because I need to go out on a high. Yes, Chris, go Patriots, top the AFC East for now. That's how I know Chris, he's a Pats fan. So thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Tony, final thoughts before we wrap this up.
Yeah, listen, great show, great comments. Always good to see what people are thinking. Look, obviously, we all want to try and get a positive result tomorrow, but the reality is we are really up against it. And if we get anything out of the game, like I said, it'll be an absolutely fantastic result and performance, because it will need to be. So, I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but ultimately, if everything comes to fruition the way that we believe it will, then we all know it's going to be a very tough evening for Fulham.
Okay. All right. Good stuff. And listen, I want to thank everyone that watched tonight and then listens back. And then also, if you're on the Cottage Talk Patreon page, you actually get a podcast version of this, which is great. I want to thank you for being a Patreon member. Most importantly, I want to thank Tony, because this has been a rough couple of weeks for me. And talking to Tony, I was feeling kind of down. Then I talked to Tony, and Tony got me back in the game, and I kind of needed that. So, Tony, thank you for your friendship, and thank you for knocking some sense into me.
No, listen, thank you for keeping Fulham alive and putting on a really great show. And it's Cottage Talk is fantastic. It gives irrelevant people like me and others the opportunity to.
You're not irrelevant. You're not.
Well,
irrelevant.
you know what I'm saying, to talk about something that we all love and we're all passionate about. And at the end of the day, it's great, Russ. So you keep up the great work, mate. It's fantastic.
Thank you, Tony. And with that, we're going to wrap up this show. For Tony Gold and Russ Goldman, thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk.